Today, we're diving into The Martian. You know the story. An astronaut gets stranded on Mars and has to, in his own words, science the heck out of an impossible situation. But how much of that incredible survival story is legitimate science, and how much is just convenient fiction? Let's dig in. Talk about an opening line, right? The story just throws you right in with this brutally honest assessment from Mark Watney himself. He's millions of miles from Earth, his crew thinks he's dead, and his chances of survival are pretty much zero. The odds against him are, well, astronomical. And that really gets to the heart of it. This story is famous for its scientific accuracy, but let's be honest, to tell a story this good, sometimes you've got to bend the laws of physics a little bit. So that's what we're going to do today. Separate the hard facts from the Hollywood fiction. All right, first up, a necessary fiction. We've got to start at the very beginning, with that crazy catastrophic storm that gets Watney stranded in the first place. This is the event that kicks off the entire plot, but as it turns out, it's also the biggest scientific fib in the whole story. So in the story, we see these hurricane-force winds that are strong enough to rip apart equipment and even tip over a massive rocket. Here's the reality, though. The Martian atmosphere is incredibly thin. We're talking about 1% as dense as Earth's. So even if you had winds screaming at 100 miles an hour on Mars, they wouldn't have the force to do much damage at all. It'd feel more like a stiff breeze than a deadly storm. And you don't have to take my word for it. The author, Andy Weir, has been totally open about this. He basically said he needed a way to strand Watney where it was nobody's fault, just a freak act of nature. It's a perfect plot device. You tell one big lie at the beginning, so you can spend the rest of the book telling thousands of scientific truths. It's the necessary fiction that makes the whole amazing story possible. Now, while the wind wouldn't knock you over, the story did get something else about Martian weather absolutely right. The dust. The real danger for NASA isn't the wind. It's that fine, sticky dust that gets on everything. It's electrostatic, so it clings to surfaces, especially solar panels. A thick enough coating could completely cut off a mission's power supply. So all those scenes of Watney diligently sweeping off his solar panels, that is 100% accurate. Okay, so we've gotten the big fiction out of the way. Now let's get to the truly fascinating science. With Watney stranded, he has to solve his biggest problem. He's going to run out of food. And this leads to what is probably the most memorable part of the entire story, his plan to become the very first farmer on Mars. Watney's plan is just a work of genius. It's pure problem solving. So first, he needs soil. No problem, he just brings the Martian dirt, the regolith, inside the hab. Step 2, water. This is where he gets really creative, using a pretty risky chemical process to get water from leftover rocket fuel. Third, fertilizer. Well, the only organic matter around is the crew's vacuum-sealed human waste. And finally, he just has to plant something. Luckily, he's got the potatoes they were saving for Thanksgiving. So this is where it gets really interesting. A botanist, Martian dirt, human waste, and some leftover potatoes. I mean, it sounds completely insane, right? But could it actually work? The science here is pretty wild. And the answer is, surprisingly, yes. Scientists on Earth have run experiments with soil that mimics Martian dirt. And it turns out it's actually pretty good for growing stuff. It holds water well, and it has most of the key minerals plants need. The only major thing it's missing is reactive nitrogen, which is absolutely vital for growth. But that's exactly what Watney's homemade fertilizer provides. The basic chemistry is totally solid. But wait, there's a twist. See, after the book came out, a real NASA mission discovered that Martian soil is actually full of toxic chemicals called perchlorates. And these things are really harmful if you eat them. So it kind of looks like a giant mission-ending plot hole that would make his whole plan impossible. But here's the amazing part. When Andy Weir was asked about this, he had a solution that was both simple and totally scientifically sound. Perchlorates are water-soluble. So all Watney would have to do is wash the soil before planting his potatoes, and the toxins would just rinse right out. How cool is that? The science in the story was so robust, it could even adapt to new discoveries. You know, The Martian is so much more than just a series of cool science problems. At its core, it's a deeply, deeply human story. So let's talk about the themes that made it connect with millions of people all over the world. This line, "This is so much more than just a quote." It's Mark Watney's mission statement. It perfectly captures that central theme of the human spirit just refusing to give up. Yeah, he has his moments of despair, of course he does, but his fundamental instinct is always to survive, to work the problem, and to find a way to live. And this is where we find the real heart of the story.
It's not just about one man's will to live. It's about our collective will, as a species, to save him. Watney's survival might depend on his own smarts, but it's all fueled by his absolute faith that people he's never even met, millions of miles away, will literally move heaven and earth to bring him home.
And just think about how powerful that is. The whole world gets obsessed with this one rescue mission. Even international rivals, like the US and China, set aside their differences to work together for a common cause. The story gives us this almost utopian vision of humanity uniting, where one person's life is valued by everyone, everywhere. It's such an optimistic idea, especially compared to the divisions we often see in the real world.
So, when you put all of that together, the clever science, that relentless spirit, the idea of global cooperation, it's pretty easy to see why this story became such a massive phenomenon.
Just look at this number. The book has been translated into over 45 languages. That's incredible. It's proof of just how universal this story's appeal really is, how one astronaut's struggle captured the entire world's imagination.
Ultimately, I think The Martian works so well because it feels so real. It grounds this unbelievable situation in science that you can actually follow and understand. And it pairs that intellectual puzzle with this incredibly optimistic message that if we're smart enough, tough enough, and we work together, no problem is truly unsolvable. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. In a world that can feel pretty cynical, The Martian it's a breath of fresh, hopeful air. It's a powerful reminder of our shared humanity and that instinct to help one another out. It makes you wonder, maybe the most compelling science fiction isn't really about alien invasions or dark futures. Maybe it's about the absolute best we can be and everything we can achieve when we decide to do it together. What do you think?